So this activity that I created for low-level readers matches with the standard, which has students describe characters in a story. So that's kind of the first part of the standard, and the first part of the standard can kind of be matched with the first part of this activity. So the first part of the activity, students are matching characters to their descriptions, traits, personalities, and stuff like that. So students can just draw lines to the traits that the characters match to. So that kind of meets the first part of the standard, which says describe characters. The kind of like second part, I guess you can say, of this activity has students writing a sentence of each character on their worksheet. Each character on their worksheet. So on their worksheet, there's a lot of space under each character, and they're instructed to write a sentence of each character. It could be something that they said, something that they did, something that they learned about them, something that they said that was funny, anything like that. Now the second part of the standard asks for students to explain how their actions contribute to the sequence of events. So how does the character's actions contribute to the sequence of events? Now for these students, I had them just focus on Fern. So basically the third thing in this activity is to open up your notebooks and write down a few sentences about the overall impact that Fern had on the main event that took place in this story. So students are able to kind of see how Fern's actions really kind of like set the scene for the story. It's specific things that she says and does that allows for this story to be a story. If it wasn't for Fern's actions or words, with her father almost killing Wilbur, then Wilbur wouldn't be alive and we wouldn't have a story. So that's how I kind of centered this activity around the standard. So in regard to this group of learners, which are low-level readers, I thought that it would be really important for them to first kind of just match characters to traits. That way it can kind of refresh their memory, kind of give them a little bit more information. I really don't think that they should have any trouble with the first part of the activity. And then for the second part of the activity, I feel like the first part really kind of supports them in the second part of the activity. The third part is a little bit more difficult, which is why I just had these students focus on one character, because Mr. Arable, he decided not to kill Wilbur, so that kind of also led to the events to occur. So there were some characters that didn't have too much of an impact in this chapter, so I just thought you might as well leave them out and just have these students focus on one character for the second part of the standard. So that's kind of how I help support these students. Was I didn't just have them write sentences and write paragraphs right off the bat. I kind of had them match things in a chart, and then I had them write sentences that they could easily kind of use the information that they learned from the chart to write a sentence, and then I kind of had them explain the overall impact that Fern had in this chapter in the events. So I thought that these students would be equipped with enough information, enough support to really succeed in this activity and meet the standard and all that good stuff. So the rubric that I created, let me go to it. This activity is actually worth 25 points. So there's 5 different categories, because there's kind of 3 different parts of this activity. My other activities really only have 2 parts. So the first part is they correctly match the characters to the traits. So students get 5 points if they correctly match the name of the character to the description of the traits. So that's my first category in my rubric, is the first part of this activity, which is the matching section of this activity. Now the second part of the activity and the second part of the rubric go hand in hand as well, where I'm going to be grading students on their ability to describe the character in a sentence. So I asked for them to collectively, as a group, write 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences for each character, describing them, describing something that they said, something that they did. I mean, just describing something about them, something that they learned in this chapter. So they get 5 points if students write a sentence about each of the character. The points get lowered if they only write about 3 characters or 2 characters or 1 character or none. Now the third category matches with the third part of the activity. So the third category is the character's impact. So I asked students to identify the overall impact Fern had on the story so far. So if students correctly identify how Fern had an overall impact in the story so far, they get 5 points. Now, depending on the information that they come up with as a group about the impact, points will get lowered if students really aren't making connections between the character and the event. So it's really the only way that points can get lowered, or if they just completely skip out on it and just don't write the connection between the character and the event. So depending on which one it is, or if it's both, if both are missing, then points will get lowered. So the fourth thing that I have as a category is teamwork. Teamwork is super important. I want every student to be working together for this activity. The more people that we have discussing ideas, the better the ideas get. So students get 5 points if everyone participates in the group. As participation dwindles down, so do the points that they get. Now the last category is organization. So I want these students to have organized work that is neat. So if they have neat work that is organized, 5 points. The less organized and the less neat that their work is, the points get lowered. The lowest point that students can get for every category is 1. So this is out of 25 points. So the highest score that students can get is 25. The lowest is 5, which I really don't think that's going to be a problem. Now, the last thing that I wanted to bring up is the source that I used for this center. So this is a source that I also used for another one of my centers, but it is titled Effective Instruction Ideas for Low Groups. So it does talk about low reading groups, not low number of groups, or low low is in the amount of students in a group. It's actually talking about low reading groups. So it kind of talks about making time for fluency, phonics review, but when it comes to actual instruction for comprehension or stuff like that, it says to use a lot of visuals. So I kind of incorporated the worksheet and the chart to kind of give visuals to students and to kind of make those connections visually. And so I thought that would be really good for students to do. I also tried to include meaning, so I directly tied this activity to the standards. So it really just helped me kind of learn about what these students really need to succeed. What are some of the different things that I can bring in this activity that can help kind of balance their comprehension, balance their understanding, meet the standards, understand the characters, understand the effects that characters have on the events. So I think that is it. I think I've hit all points. Yep, I think I'm done. Okay, thank you so much for watching.